We're with Whitney Ty. This is Zach Martin. It's the Big Fat American Radio Network. And you have this album out called Apogee, and we'll get to that in a second. And then I was listening to the song you sent me. And listen, on the top of my head, I gotta get the name of the title of it. I was like, yeah, this is a really good song. Righteous, that's it. Because I was also listening to The Cure and a few other tracks that are on your site. And I really like the music. So pardon me for getting confused with all the tracks, because I did take the time to go to your site, which is totally awesome. Now, I want to.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take
well,
in.
I'll tell you something. You're very interesting. I read the bio, and I read some of your story, where you're from and what happened to you as a little girl, and I'm really sorry to hear about your mom, and we'll get to that in a second. But what amazed me, if I was to, my own daughter's here in the studio with me, and I look at what's put together on this press release, and you're really, you got a lot of parts going on, a very interesting background. I mean, you're creative director, and I guess you know all of these different, I guess, mediums of art, if you want to explain it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, talk about your mom, and then what brought you to LA, and also as you tell us this journey, what are some of the things that you became interested in, and how do you utilize that to make your music today? So it's really a complex question to just like let you have the spotlight and give us a story.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. I'd love to give you a little backstory. So I grew up in Yonkers, New York, which is about 15, 20 minutes outside by car out of Manhattan. I grew up with my father and my mother. My father was a Con Edison special responder for like over 37 years. So he was on the front lines doing, seeing and doing a lot of things that were unsightly and very traumatic. And my mom was a business owner. She did title insurance, and she used to work with all the prominent lawyers in Westchester County, and she was her own female business leader, which I thought was really inspiring as a young girl. My mom was also very much of a fashionista, so every day was like seeing her come out of the house in the most crazy of outfits, and she'd go out into the world, and kind of inspired me from a young age to just be an entrepreneur, to just be my own woman, and not really follow, like, I guess, what the societal norms are for women in society. But I think it's women are out there every day doing this, so it's inspiring to see that my own mother was someone even in the 80s, 90s who was out there. And my mom's best friend was a architectural designer, and she was very close to me most of my life. So just seeing her work over the years really pushed me to go into the world of the arts. And I knew I wanted to just do arts in general, because I've always been creative since I was little. I was drawing, illustrating, writing poetry from when I was like 6 or 7 years old, like really deep poems about existentialism and just the world. And I didn't really know why. It's kind of like the words just kind of came to me, and I had all these ideas and thoughts and questions and philosophical yearnings that were just kind of inside of me. It was probably why I started writing music so young. But my mother, she got pretty sick around, I would want to say 96. Then she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, but they caught it very late, because it usually doesn't present itself until it's already in like a stage 3, 4 status. So that was really traumatic, and it was very fast. Like, she went to a lot of treatments, and she suffered very much. And right near the end, when she was going into remission, the hospital missed something, and the cancer grew out of control. And then within a few months, it was just before Christmas. I've talked about my mother in a few different interviews, but I always glaze over like something that was just very traumatic for me. And I kind of want to bring it up just to give you a more personal view into, to what this is. And if anyone out there is listening, that maybe they can relate to this. But I was 10 years old, and I remember the night that my mom was in a coma, and she was in our house because she was afraid to die in a hospital alone. So we brought her home, and, we had the whole family at the house. And the next morning, I think it was December 9th. She passed away in the morning, and I remember just sitting at my windowsill, just watching the EMT bring her out on a stretcher to the ambulance and like drive her away. And, I just never forgot that memory, or the memory of crawling up the steps to say goodbye to her, and my knees were buckling, and I couldn't make my way up there. And it was just like a very traumatic experience as a child, because at that time I feel like I understood what was going on in the world, maybe more so than another 10-year-old might. I just felt like I could concept and grasp the idea of death, but I don't think I had the words to express it maybe, but I knew what was going on, but it impacted me for the rest of my life as an artist. I just made a promise to myself and to everyone out there fighting for something creative that you got to go out there and live like it's your last day on earth, because you don't know when it's coming, and it could be tomorrow, it could be in an hour. So I've always approached everything I've done after that with the most incredible amount of passion that I could muster in my body. So my voice is trembling right now. It's like sometimes when you go back there, it's like you're brought right back to that moment again. But I really enjoyed studying art. It's the one thing I think that kind of saved me and connected me to all the people I needed to meet in order to even thrust myself further into a music career. So it kind of gave me all the tools to express myself and get rid of some of that painful energy of my childhood. And my mother's father and mother, they've had like the most difficult life. They lost all of their children. They outlived their smallest baby, who died at 5 from polio. Their 2 middle sons passed away, and my last was their mother. So I kind of spent a lot of time with them because they were alone and they didn't have any family left but me and my little sister. So I felt obligated to just kind of keep them afloat. And they were just really beautiful, inspiring, smart, people. My grandfather was an engineer. He was a woodworker, and he loved sci-fi, and like we used to have like long talks about different shows and movies in that genre. And he was just a great guy, and we got really close towards the end of his life. And I was his immediate caretaker for a long time, and that's kind of what thrusted me out to LA, because after caring for an elderly person for a couple of years, I was just completely ravaged and exhausted. And this was all while I was writing my first album. So it was for him. Like I knew that his dream was to travel more and to go places and to get out of where he was, because I guess he was just like kind of imprisoned by his pain and also his situation. And so my honor, Apogee, my new album, is dedicated to him. And it's all kind of this like fizzling volcano that's erupted at the top, and Apogee is that moment for me where I finally felt like I had some peace of mind, or that I could regenerate or renew again without all of this negation and stuff around me that was draining my soul, but at the same time somehow giving me the greatest wisdom that I could have ever asked for. So it's, life is a catch-22 like that. But that's my long-winded answer.
No, it's great. I'm glad that you shared that, because there's a couple of things that I was thinking as you were expressing yourself and the loss of your mom, and talking about your grandparents and caring for the elderly and living your life to the fullest. All of those different things that you brought up, and how you brought it into your art, and now you have Apogee as an album. We're talking with Whitney Ty. I was just curious, because I'm not a walking thesaurus anymore, and I've forgotten a lot of words. What is the meaning of Apogee, and why did you, I guess somehow you were drawn to that word by definition, by experience. So do you want to tell us about that part of the process, coming up with this name, Apogee, for the album?
Yeah, well, originally when I was writing the album, I kind of knew going in that the subject matter was going to be about renewal. It was about, I had this vision one night when I was laying in bed, and I thought about how many years I had struggled with anxiety and just kind of paralyzing anxiety, to the point where I was sick for many years, health reasons, and I've always felt discomfort. I was always living in a state of discomfort, or my health was always compromised. And apogee was like the one word that I could find, the one definition I could find that it really expressed what I had finally been able to feel, which is weightlessness. And I've always felt very heavy. And so apogee by definition is the furthest point in orbit outside of Earth, or a high climactic point. Mm. So for me, it was, the vision I had was that I was floating in the darkness of space, and that all that I had was my heartbeat and my breath that I could rely on, that I could hear and feel, and having that carnal, visceral connection to just living and not having any other thoughts, but just living and loving the moment that you're in, and really just truly believing that. Because people say live in the moment, live in the present, but it's like, do you really even know what that means? Have you ever imagined detaching your soul from your body and realizing that you can experience the universe in a quantum experience that's beyond just the human form? And then when you don't have, your tactile pain and emotion and your sense of smell or anything to rely on, are you able to still be happy? Are you happy without all these earthly things? And that was kind of where apogee was born.
Wow. The whole quantum realm thing is very interesting to me on so many levels. And we could spend hours talking about that. But we don't have the time. The album Apogee and Apogee and some of the tracks that are on it, you had a nice team built around you. You want to talk about the production aspects? Who's the producer? Who are some of the other members of the band that help you record this album? Because they've got a really interesting background.
Thank you. My producer, his name is Tim Janssens. Tim is a film score composer and a #1 Billboard producer. He's worked on a lot of hits that people might have heard in the early 2000s. I grew up listening to his music. It's just kind of funny. So we laugh about that often, that, I used to jam out in the car before I knew him, like to all his songs. And it was irony that we ended up working together, and he was one of my favorite dance producers. So Tim is incredible. He's one of the few people I work with that just understands as a songwriter what I'm looking for as far as nuance and texture and sound. And, just whether I'm writing a melody or chords or lyrics, he can pick up on what it is that I want, in a very, I don't know how, it's like a ethereal way.
He can he anticipates.
Yeah, he anticipates, and I think it's because he just sees my soul, and I think he understands where I come from, and we've become really good friends, and just having that connection really allows us to make music that speaks from the deepest part of who we are. And we engineered, mixed, and did all of the work in our studio. We've had some other artists come in, my bandmates, Andrew Kingsley, who's our lead guitar player, who's had a very big influence on my new album as far as sound, because he's a heavy metal guy, but actually he's a jazz guy, but then he loves heavy metal, but now he's kind of moved into this pop realm with me, and he's an incredible songwriter. We actually have a side project together called the 1905, and we do more like prog rock. It's like Pink Floyd meets Chris Cornell meets Stone Temple Pilots, so it's like a nice combo of influences.
Check you out.
Guthrie in there. So, and then my drummer Matt Paris, amazing guy, really, really high energy. I love what he brings to the band. He's kind of like that. He's like that person in the back, like with their hand up, like, yeah, like getting you going. And I just love that even at our live shows, like his energy is just so electric. So these are my people. I've got a couple of other co-writers on the album. My friend Emer Kinsella, who's a classical violinist, she co-wrote the end track of the album, Incantation. So I had a fair amount of really cool people working on this record with me, who are just like an integral part of my everyday life as a band and as a family even.
What were some of those songs that you grew up listening to that Tim was part of? I'm almost tempted to say, was it Pink by any chance?
No, it's actually, he went under his dance alias, which is Sun Freaks.
I know that, but you grew up listening to him.
Counting Down the Days was one of the big Billboard hits. and then I Can't Help Myself. And then he also did some remixes for Neo and Nelly Furtado, Because of
Oh,
You
okay,
by
all right,
Neo.
all right. Yeah, say, this
Yeah.
is funny. I met Neo one time, and he was in
Oh,
my
nice.
he was in my studio in New York City, and they just caught me in the middle of doing something else. My genre sticks to basically the rock music, but I've kind of like, if someone wants to be part of what I'm doing and on my radio show and is willing, as long as they're willing to do the work with me and be present for the interviews and do stuff on social media, I'm like, yeah, we'll play your record. It's great. You got to have a
Yeah.
reason. You got to have a story. So Neo comes in, he comes in, and the young people in my family, they're sort of like frustrated with me because I thought, hey, so who did I think was that? Who did I think was my intern? Ed Sheeran? What's his name? Ed Sheeran. I thought Ed Sheeran was my intern. He came over three times, and I'm like, what are you doing there? He goes, it's my guitar. I go, all right, well, you got to stick with it. You got to keep writing songs. He's like, yeah. And we had these like 20, 30-minute conversations just having talk. All right, nice talking with you. I'd see you later. And then he comes back a few times. Now, when he sees me, when we're not under lockdown, he's like, hey, man, how's it going? And we have these conversations, and some of my cousins even are like, what's wrong with you thinking this guy's your intern? So Neo's in there, and I start going, hey, like, what's with you rap singers? He goes, what do you mean? I go, you rap singers. I hear some of the lyrics, and you're pretending like you're great like Marvin Gaye. You're not even close to Marvin Gaye. And he starts to laugh. I go, I get it. It's like what you do, but like, let's stop the comparison to Marvin Gaye because there is no comparison to Marvin Gaye. Can we just agree upon that? And he was like, yeah, okay. So, I'll talk to just about anybody, to be honest with you. It's one of those things. I like discovering, but everybody gets treated the same. Like the interview we're having now is the same sort of like interaction that I would give with Paul McCartney. It doesn't really matter to me. And sometimes I even give the more famous they are, sometimes I give them a little bit of a harder time. You want to hear my Paul McCartney elevator?
Well, they can take it. They've been through the mill already.
Well, I think that they're so used to everybody kissing their ass that when they get somebody who's just authentic, it just blows they blow their mind. I mean, I got in a fight with Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick one time because he goes, what kind of radio station doesn't have The Move? I go, the radio station that's playing all your songs. I think you should just calm yourself. And then he goes, what's with that guy, to my boss? All right, let's get back to Whitney Ty. We're talking about her album Apogee and the various characters that are in her band and how she writes her music. Now, on top of everything else, because of your website's off the charts, fantastic. Did you design the website? Did you put that together?
Yeah, I do most of my content creation. I've worked with some people in the past when I was getting started, but I come from a fine arts background, so I have the ability to make a lot of things, which as an indie artist today is very helpful, especially on your pockets.
Absolutely. You got to do a lot of the work yourself. I'm on a certain level, I do the same thing with my craft. So I got your website here, WhitneyTayMusic.com, TayMusic.com. I'm screwing up the name. And you got the various pictures and all of that stuff. And it's really clean. It's nice. I suggest if you want a great website and you're listening right now, go to WhitneyTayMusic.com because this is phenomenal what she does here. And I sense that. What was the art school that you went to?
I went to the New York School of Interior Design. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interiors and Architecture, but it's like a general, like,
yeah.
I feel like they give you such like a wide scope of skills when you leave there. I was like kind of surprised when I went in there. I wasn't really sure what the program was going to be like, and it's very, very in depth, especially with because I mean, when you're an architect or a designer of any type, doing the drawings is one part of the process, but presenting them is a whole other. So learning how to communicate your ideas to a room of people who don't know anything about your project and knowing how to present it in a professional way is like a huge part of their education there. So they do a really good job at allowing artists to not just stop working when they're done doing their task, but they now they're like, all right, well now that you've finished your task, how are you going to communicate this to everybody?
Yeah.
And so they give you really great courses on visual media.
Obviously, I think some of the architecture is missing the point with that. When I drive around New York City,
Yeah, right.
everything is clear glass, and I don't need to see certain things. Okay. Here's a very interesting thing. I think if you were to ask me, hey Zach, if you were an interior designer, what would you do? And here's my answer: I'd be very minimalist. It'd be wooden floor, white walls, very nice, very nice, modest curtains, and one chair in the middle of the room. That would be it.
Sounds very Danish.
You know what that would be? I would, if I put a chair in the middle of the room, or I left my glasses in an empty space at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Do you know people would crowd around looking at that, going, "My gosh, that's impressive art." Is what that is.
Totally.
It's unbelievable what people think.
That's our hipster culture.
Yeah, yeah.
The banana on the canvas with some duct tape.
You got to love the guy who ate it, right? That's good stuff.
I know, it was a really good way to end that story.
Yeah, I like that. Now we go over your site, WhitneyTyMusic.com, and I go into the press release part, the press part. Now, here's another great thing about your site. I know we're talking about the music, but I have to praise your site. Less is more. You get that. You make it easy. You got your new releases. You got the video, The Cure, which is really good. And I thought to myself, oh, she likes The Cure like I do. Great. Good song. So
I do like The Cure. I love The Cure.
You know what? We play a lot of it. It's one of my favorite bands. They are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Obviously, they know what they're doing. And they got a good sense of humor, because one time I saw The Cure outside of D.C., and you know the crowd that goes to The Cure. They're nothing like me. They're the goth kids, and the cool ones. And I'm up there, and all of a sudden I have to do it. I yell at Freebird, and I forget who was it in The Cure. They laugh. They go, "No, we're not playing Freebird." I mean, they responded. Now here's it. You just got to have fun. I get a sense that you're a Guardian of the Galaxy fan.
I do like Guardian of the Galaxy.
The Guardians, that's a good
How did
good
you
movie.
know that?
I just had a sense. I mean, and when I was listening to stuff, I'm like, obviously there was some inspiration drawn off those characters. If you were to give me, no,
I think that's just my soul. Like I think I'm just kind of some kind of space creature. When I was a kid, I was like, I'm not from Earth. I'm from space.
I think well, that's true for all of us now. As I was thinking about that, and this connection with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I have to ask you this, because I think it says a lot about who we are when we tell everybody who our favorite superhero is. And let's just stick to the Marvel side of things, because I'm not really good at DC. All I know is Superman and Batman, but I know plenty of the Marvel guys. Who is your favorite superhero?
Oh shit. Let me see. That's tough. I never really thought about that. Maybe. Wow. This is it's like a deep question. I guess. Maybe Spider-Man. All
right, Spider-Man. My daughter likes Spider-Man. I think she likes the kid who plays Spider-Man. My favorite superhero is Captain Marvel, and let me tell you why. There's nothing that stops her. She can go through space. She doesn't need a spacesuit, from what I gather. She can like barrel through gigantic spaceships and bring them down, and she's great at fighting. And Black Widow is pretty good at fighting too. I mean, she's got some killer moves there, but I have to go with Captain Marvel. And I didn't know that.
That's a great choice. It's hard to choose. I want to choose all of them. Can I just be all of them?
You can do that too. You could actually go all the Guardians or the Avengers. You can go like that too.
Yeah. I think I kind of want to shapeshift and do different things.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, so we know a little bit more about you on that side, and let's get back to the music where. And I don't know how you feel when people do this, but you get compared, and I like this comparison. There's two of them who are just I think, greats, but I think a little bit, I don't think they get enough respect in the industry. And that's Kate Bush and Annie Lennox. To be, to be on that level, that's saying something. How does that make you feel?
I mean, it's the utmost honor to hear anyone comparing me to any artist who I admire and feel contributes something really beautiful to the art of music. So it doesn't really bother me. I'm I think everybody's going to take away something different or feel something different from, when they listen to you. But I am also a big believer in that you can't escape your influences and the people who have inspired you as an artist, even though you might move through genres and you might find your own sound. I think, even my favorite bands, I can listen to their songs and be like, it doesn't sound like them, but I can definitely hear that
The
this is an
influence.
influence in their life.
Well, I can explain how that works, if you don't mind. All right. So
I would love to hear.
I grew up listening to various disc jockeys. And I would say, man, I'd like to be that. I mean, when I was a kid, I was already imitating Don Imus, Imus in the Morning, that guy from the 70s. And I really loved, and you were talking to Mason Munoz, his dad is Scott Muni, world famous Scott Muni. You probably have listened to him on the radio. So that was my hero. I ended up working with all of them. I ended up working with Scott. I ended up working with Don Imus. I ended up working with a couple guys from CBS FM, the guys I grew up listening to. And some of the older disc jockeys on NEW and I worked with all of these people. And I would say that I borrowed a little bit from each one of them, and I made my own masterpiece with it. And I know at one point that I was influential on Scott. As much as I was drawn and influenced by him, I think that I had the influence on him as well. So, that's a collaboration that very few people ever get to enjoy. You grow up, so I think that is, just amazing. And then someone will say, when I play songs, whatever they might be, and how I put it together on the air, all right, I put the stuff in a computer playlist and it spits it out because my memory is shot, so I can't remember what I played from day to day. But I have just this way of moving things around and I just go, all right. So I call it a palette of sound that you can't see, and I can't explain it to you, but I just know exactly where to place things. And I think that that's what I hear in your music. You just know exactly where to place things. I mean, you get some help, some I guess coaching along the way, but you know exactly how to place things.
Yeah, Tim has taught me a lot. I mean, Tim's been doing this for such a long time, and he really expanded my knowledge and helped me refine my own craft, which I think in any career you move into, you have to be prepared to be headstrong, but you also have to be prepared to learn, because you can't stray from who you are, but you also have to be moldable, to be better, to be able to listen and take advice and critique. So, I mean, he just knows how to guide me, especially if I'm running off on a tangent or if I'm going somewhere. He can rein me back in, and that's always like a good feeling when someone knows you and can teach you how to be the best version of yourself.
That's fantastic. Now I'm going to ask you one final question, Whitney. You know that there's going to be a little girl out there somewhere who is 10 years old, very young, who's losing one of their parents. And I know you went through a horrible loss, but, maybe that person, that little one, needs some words of inspiration of how to get through it. And then maybe, if they're having a hard time, what do they do as a next step? Because one of the things that I've seen, especially over the past couple of years, is a problem with bullying and people committing suicide. So we don't want that. We don't want either. So give that little girl, talk to that little 10-year-old right now and tell her from Whitney to her some encouraging words and how to, try to move forward in life.
If you're out there and you're listening, I want you to know that you are beautiful, you are smart, you are innately special. You will never lose that value, and use all of the things that happen to you in your life to help push you to use all your creative energy into making something positive that impacts the life of other people and brings joy to yourself, and learn how to say no to things in life that make you unhappy, and keep choosing to do things that make you feel full inside, that never leave you lonely, that allow you to bring the people and attract the people into your life that are going to help you and guide you and love you back to health again. Because that's what brought me here. Was I had enough love and people who really believed and cared about me to show me that energy never dies. It just keeps moving. If you lose somebody, they're always there with you. They're part of you. They're part of your experience. So nothing is ever over. And if you don't believe it's over, then infinity is all we have.